The mannequin that turns its head near Grand Central was not CGI. Every detail you accepted as simple filmmaking hides a production decision in plain sight. These are 15 hidden details you completely missed in I Am Legend. Number 15. The masterwork paintings covering Neville's townhouse walls look like expert set dressing and nothing more. They are not prints. Director Francis Lawrence told How Stuff Works that every canvas is an original artwork, some existing before production began, others commissioned from specialist artists who replicate museum-quality work. The production's written justification is that Neville scavenged these pieces from Manhattan's empty galleries after the outbreak. Production designer Naomi Shohan oversaw every piece that went on those walls. Look at the scale and finish of each painting during any wide interior shot of the living area. Rewatch every home scene knowing Neville is not decorating a refuge, but curating what remains of human civilization. The lab directly below those walls was built with the same documented authenticity. Number 14. Neville's basement lab reads as a movie set built around dramatic function. It is something far more specific. Production designer Naomi Shohan flew with Will Smith on a private plane to visit a real Biosafety Level 4 laboratory, and the interior design was modeled directly on what they observed during that visit. The rounded cornerless walls and seamless surfaces in every lab scene are direct references to documented sterile room architecture. Look at those curved edges and the deliberate absence of right angles the next time Neville moves through that space. Rewatch any lab sequence knowing the geometry surrounding Neville is scientifically accurate and based on a real classified facility. The exterior of his building carries a hidden truth, just as specific. Number 13. Neville moves seamlessly between his front steps and his interior rooms throughout the film, and every cut feels like the same continuous structure. Those two spaces are miles apart. The brownstone exterior used for all outdoor shots is 11 Washington Square North in Greenwich Village. The 4-story interior and the basement lab were built inside the Marcy Avenue Armory in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Director Francis Lawrence and producer Michael Tadros chose Armory space to give the production the controlled scale the lab sequences required. Look at the doorway and stoop in any exterior shot, then compare the interior hallway proportions. Rewatch every time Neville steps outside or comes home knowing that cut crosses two separate buildings separated by miles of city. The next location secret operates at an even larger scale. Number 12. The empty Times Square sequences feel like the real intersection sealed off and handed to one man and his dog. The actual Times Square was never cleared. VFX supervisor Jim Burney of Sony Pictures Imageworks confirmed in FX Guide that the real location was scanned by LiDAR technology down to roughly 2-inch precision. The production then built only the Duffy Square Island as a physical set inside the Kingsbridge Armory in the Bronx. Every surrounding streetscape in those sequences was constructed entirely in CGI using that scan data. Look at the horizon line in any Times Square wide shot. Rewatch those sequences knowing the most iconic location in the film is also the most artificial one. The real Manhattan streets that were shut down tell a very different story. Number 11. The deer running through overgrown Fifth Avenue feel organic and physically grounded in every scene. Every single animal is a hand-animated CGI creation. Sony Pictures Imageworks built 15 procedurally varied deer with 6 interchangeable antler sets, using a stuffed toy deer photographed on the actual closed streets as their only physical reference for scale and lighting. Meanwhile, the Mustang chase is exactly what it looks like. A real 2007 Shelby GT5, 100 driven at speed down a closed Fifth Avenue and into the Park Avenue tunnel. Watch the deer in any herd shot and pause on the subtle variation in antler shape from animal to animal. Rewatch the chase sequence knowing the most cinematic moment in those scenes needed no visual effects at all. That Mustang has a story of its own. Number 10. Neville drives what appears to be a single continuous prop throughout the film. Ford built 6 identical 2007 Shelby GT500 cars for the shoot. When filming ended, 5 were destroyed under standard studio disposal practice. The sole surviving vehicle carries Carroll Shelby's signature on the dashboard, has approximately 6,605 miles on the odometer, and has been publicly listed for sale at between $85,000 and $150,000. That signature is physically present on the actual car used for those interior shots. Rewatch any driving sequence knowing 5 identical versions of that car no longer exist. The production's approach to the creatures moving through those same streets followed an equally dramatic pattern of building and then abandoning what had already been constructed. The Darkseekers were originally something completely different. Number 9. The Darkseekers look the way they do because a major design decision collapsed 1 week after production started. Creature designer Patrick Tatopoulos had developed full practical prosthetic designs for stunt performers and dancers. Director Francis Lawrence stopped the approach after 1 week, concluding that no performer in a physical suit could sustain the constant hyperventilation and abandoned the role required. Sony Pictures AmedWorks then built 43 unique CGI creatures sculpted from cyber scans of real stunt performers. Actor Dashmi Hawk motion captured the alpha male, dancer Joanna Numata played the alpha female, and singer Mike Patton of Faith No More provided all the guttural vocal effects. Rewatch, knowing the original design had been physically built and discarded before filming continued. The mannequin in Times Square was built with equal precision. Number 8. The moment Fred's head subtly shifts direction near Grand Central Station is one of the film's most unsettling images and reads as a seamless CGI effect. It was performed by a real person. Actor Martin Sewell wore full mannequin makeup and prosthetics for the sequence, and real mimes occupied several other mannequin positions. The scene is constructed to remain deliberately ambiguous between Neville's psychological deterioration and the possibility that the Darkseekers placed Fred as bait to trigger a trap. Watch Fred's position in the earlier morning scenes, then pause at the exact moment Neville freezes. Rewatch, knowing the film's most unsettling moment was created by a human performer in makeup, not a computer. Will Smith's real-life daughter appears in the film with the same commitment to grounded performance. Number 7. The flashback sequences showing Neville's daughter during the Manhattan evacuation are brief and carry enormous emotional weight in the film. The girl playing Marley Neville is Willow Smith, Will Smith's real daughter, appearing in a feature film for the first time. The decision to cast her was deliberate, connecting the fictional family loss to an actual parent-child relationship between the two performers on set. Those scenes include the Brooklyn Bridge evacuation sequence. Look at the helicopter departure and the moment of separation between Neville and Marley through the glass. The reaction on Will Smith's face is responding to his actual child. Rewatch that moment knowing the grief has a real origin beyond performance. The Brooklyn Bridge behind them cost the production more than any other single location in the film. Number 6. The scene in which Neville loses Sam is the emotional center of the film and the moment most frequently cited by audiences. Warner Bros. President Alan Horn told Will Smith and writer Akiva Goldsman directly that an American film could not have its lead perform that scene on screen. Goldsman saved it by proposing a stage play approach. The camera holds entirely on Smith's face while only the audio carries the action, the sound of pause slowing to silence. Watch Smith's face throughout the entire sequence. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Goldsman later said test audiences walked out of screenings when Sam died. Rewatch the scene knowing its restraint is not a style choice, but the compromise that saved it from being removed. The dog herself carried a secret most viewers never suspected. Number 5. Sam reads throughout the film as a male dog, but Sam is short for Samantha. Both German Shepherds who played the role, lead dog Abby and backup Kona, were female. Trainer Steve Behrens rescued Abby from a failing California breeding kennel with only 3 weeks to prepare her before meeting Will Smith on set. After production ended, Smith repeatedly asked Behrens to allow an adoption and reportedly offered significant incentives, but Behrens declined. Behrens later confirmed to Love to Know Pets that Abby passed away in 2018. Watch every Sam scene knowing the character is female, and the bond between Smith and that dog drove a genuine post-production adoption attempt. The background of Times Square hides an equally unexpected detail. Number 4. The abandoned Times Square CGI streetscape contains a billboard for a Batman vs. Superman film, visible more than 9 years before the actual 2016 release. Writer Akiva Goldsman had drafted a Batman vs. Superman script in June 2002 for director Wolfgang Peterson, codenamed Asylum, before Warner Bros. Shelved it to develop Batman Begins instead. In a 2014 Collider interview, Lawrence confirmed the billboard was never officially cleared by the studio, but the film's Warner Bros. Affiliation made any objection impossible. Look at the upper portion of the Times Square skyline and any wide establishing shot of the deserted street. Rewatch those sequences knowing an abandoned DC project sits embedded in the ruins of that CGI cityscape. The film's own ending carries a studio conflict with even greater consequences. Number 3. The theatrical ending presents Neville as a heroic legend. That is not what the title means. Director Francis Lawrence confirmed on the Happy Sad Confused podcast that the title only carries its full meaning in the original alternate ending, where Neville realizes he has become the monster of legend to the new society, not its savior. In that version, the alpha male traces a butterfly shape on the lab's plexiglass, and Neville understands what he has done. Test audiences rejected that ending twice before November 2007 reshoots produced the theatrical version. Look at Neville's wall of Polaroid photographs in any lab scene. The original ending treats those images as evidence of his actions against a civilization, not a scientist's research log. Rewatch knowing the title's meaning changed entirely when the ending did. Number 2. The evacuation flashback on the Brooklyn Bridge reads as a controlled crowd sequence. It is one of the most expensive single-location shoots in New York City history. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the sequence cost $5 million and was filmed over 6 consecutive nights in January 2007. It required clearance from 14 government agencies and deployed approximately 1,000 extras, 160 National Guard personnel, 3 Stryker armored vehicles, Humvees, a Coast Guard cutter, NYPD divers, and 2 helicopters. Watch the scale of the bridge in any wide shot and count the vehicles visible in a single frame. Rewatch knowing every element in that sequence was physically present and deployed under real government authorization. The film that required this scale was 13 years in development before a single frame was ever captured. Number 1. I Am Legend presents itself as a Will Smith film built around New York City. This version spent 13 years in development and came within months of being made as an entirely different film. In July 1997, director Ridley Scott signed on with Arnold Schwarzenegger attached to star, with production set to begin that autumn. The project collapsed in March 1998 when the budget reached $108 million and could not be reduced. Effects house Amalgamated Dynamics had already spent 4 months designing practical creature prosthetics that were never used. Look at any scene of Will Smith alone in the empty city and consider that those streets were designed for a different star, a different director, and a different location. The silence of this film carries 13 years of abandoned versions. Behind it, I Am Legend is a film built on compromises, from creatures redesigned mid-shoot to a dog scene nearly cut by a studio executive and an ending the director still regrets losing. Every scene carries a decision that rewrites what the frame appears to show. Watch it again. Which hidden detail surprised you most, and what film should we open next?